Welcome to the Consolidated Annual Report for fiscal year 2016-2017. My name is Dixon Owino. I'm the Reports Coordinator at the Office of Small Business. First of all, give you a background for the numbers for the fiscal year 2015-2016. The fiscal year 2015-2016, the state awarded a total of $8.1 billion in state contracts, of which $2.5 billion went to small businesses and micro businesses. $349 million went to DVBEs. The state participation rate for fiscal year 2015-2016 exceeded both minimum mandatory goals. For the small business, state participation achievement was 30.4%. For DVBEs was 4.31%, both up from the previous fiscal year. Again, my name is Dixon Owino. I'm the OSDS Reports Coordinator. Also, we have Katrina Blair, who is the OSDS Outreach Manager, and Anna Dragic, who is the OSDS Manager. If you do have any questions regarding on how to fill out the reports, or just any questions regarding the Consolidated Annual Reports, please feel free to contact me either by email or phone number. My contacts are towards the end of this presentation. If you do have any questions regarding the new improvement plan template, please feel free to contact Katrina Blair. If you have any questions regarding the small business and DVB program, please feel free to contact Anna Dragic. The agenda of this training: first, we talk about the objectives; two, background, data reporting and collection, forms and improvement plan, cover letter, talk about the new improvement plan template. And again, if you do have any questions, since this is a webinar, just go ahead and email to me, or you can give me a call. So by the end of this webinar, or by the end of this training, you should know why reports are required, which reports are required, and how to prepare each report, how and when to submit the reports. Why are the reports required? The reports are required because of 1, executive orders, and 2, the statutes. Executive Order D-43-01 was signed by Governor Gray Davis, and it calls for a 3% participation goal for DVBEs, and if the goal is not met, an improvement plan is required. Also, the 3% participation goal for DVBEs is in the Military and Veterans Code, MVC 999.5. Executive Order S-02-06 was signed by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it calls for a 25% participation goal for SBs and MBs. Again, if the 25% participation goal is not met for small business and MBs, an improvement plan is required. I have provided a link for the DVB and small business legislation and executive orders. Public Contract Code 1011 requires DVB and subcontracting activity report from 810. It also calls for submission of the DVB SB option and DVB incentive report from 810F. Also calls for the consulting services report from 810C, ethnicity, race, gender, and sexual orientation report from 810E. Also, Government Code Section 14838.1F requires that departments do submit an infrastructure bond activity report from 810A. Again, remember, reporting is mandatory. There are 2 main forms of certification. There's the DVB certification and the SB certification. For the DVBE certification, is a 2-year certification, and the business has to be California disabled, veteran owned, and operated in California. Again, the disability has to be service-related disability. In terms of SB, there's 2 forms of SB. There's a small business, which is a 2-year certification. The requirement for SB is gross annual receipts of less than equal $15 million average for the last 3 years, less than average of 100 employees for the last 4 quarters. Again, the business has to be California owned and located. For the MB, which is also a 2-year certification, the gross annual receipt is less than equal to $3.5 million average for the last 3 years, with average of less than equal to 25 employees for the last 4 quarters. Also, a manufacturer can be certified as a small micro business so long as they average less than 25 number of employees. However, a manufacturer has no gross annual receipts limit. Again, for more information about certification, I have provided a link to our certification website where you can find more information regarding different types of certifications and the requirements. There are reporting methods. Each department chooses what management system to use to report data. You can either choose Skippers, Access, Excel. However, Office of Small Business requires that you please be consistent year to year. So, for example, if you do choose to use Skippers to report your data, please make sure you're consistent each year and you're using Skippers. Again, this is the only way we can compare from one previous fiscal year to the next one. You can compare your participation rate to see whether your numbers are going up or down. Let's talk about the DVB program audit of 2013. The DVB program audit of 2013 brought up a couple issues regarding the reporting. First, there's this issue about whether to report awards or expenditure. The audit determined that it was consistent, there was some inconsistency statewide, whether some departments were reporting awards instead of expenditure and some were reporting expenditure instead of awards. Consolidated annual reports require that you only report awards, not expenditure. Second, some of the numbers that were submitted to DGS were inconsistent with what the audit showed. When several departments were audited, the numbers of small business and DV participation were less than what the numbers that were submitted to DGS. On that end, we do request that please maintain all supporting documentation of your SB and DVB activities. For example, please make sure you maintain the following supporting documentation: list, contracts, purchase orders, activity category, the total amount, prime and subcontract amount, and certification type. Again, remember, reporting is required. If any agency, board, or all agencies, boards, and commission must submit a report. If any agency does not think it should report, then it must send a justification citing the specific statute in the Code of Regulations demonstrating why they are exempt. Failure to submit the C.A.R report will lead to being published in the Do Not Report list and may affect your agency's or department's delegated purchasing authority. Again, remember, reporting is required for all agencies and departments. The consolidated annual report will include the following form. 1. Form 810, which is the DVB SB contracting activity report. Again, if you do not meet the DVB or SB goal, an improvement plan is required. Form 810S, which is the DVB, SB, and option and incentive report. Form 810A, which is the infrastructure bond report. For the infrastructure bond report, an improvement plan is required if the SB and MB goal is not met, which is 25%. Form 810C, which is the consulting services report. Form 810E, ethnicity, race, gender, and sexual orientation report. And then also, please make sure you include the cover letter. I have provided a link to the instructions and where all forms can be found. Again, if you do have any questions on how to fill out any of these forms or you cannot find any forms, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call. Contracting activity report form 810. Requirements. The Form 810 requires that you show your DVB SB participation levels in state contracting. 2, please remember that you're reporting award amounts only. And again, maintain records and consolidate multiple sources of contracts. And the reason why we ask you to maintain records is when we enter that information in our database, in case we do have any questions, we should be able to call you and you should be able to provide us with any information that we might need. Second, remember that you're reporting only state funds, including those in mixed funds. Again, if you do have any mixed funds, which is federal and state funds, please just report the state fund portion of it. And if you cannot separate the mixed state funds from the mixed funded contracts, please give us a call and we'll try to figure it out. And finally, do not report any federal funds. Again, do not report any federal funds. If you do have contracts that have federal funds, please separate the state funds from those contracts. Do not report the following. First, do not report any federal government contracts, including grants. Do not report any state or local contracts with state or local government. Do not report any contracts or agreements with prison industry authority. Do not report any contracts or agreements with which are called normally known as interagency agreements. Do not report joint powers agreements, and do not report any contracts or agreements with the California State University or the Universities of California. Attached is a copy of the Form 810, and again, all the yellow boxes need to be filled out. The aqua blue boxes, those are formulas that are already programmed in. So once you fill out the yellow boxes, those should automatically update themselves. And also important, please make sure that you do sign the report and put your phone number and email address in case we do have any questions. And the most important thing, please make sure for the Form 810, you're only reporting award amounts per Public Contract Code 10111. And if you do not report the awards, check the no box and please provide an explanation why you're not reporting the awards. Contracting Activity Report Improvement Plan. An improvement plan is required for those departments or agencies that do not meet the 3% goal, DVBE, and or SBMB 25% goal. For the improvement plan, we do have a new improvement plan template. I have provided a link that will take you to the new improvement plan template. Again, if you do have any questions, you have any problems finding the new improvement plan template, please give me a call. I will help you out to find it. But these are the following items that should be covered in the improvement plan. First, provide a summary of all reportable and non-reportable and other contracts. 2, explain why your SB and or DVB participation goal was not achieved. 3, you plan to improve contracting opportunities for SB and DVBs. And that can be done either through policy, contracting practices, outreach, advocacy, and training. And also in this section, if you do feel the reason why you did not meet your goal was either because there was a couple big contracts that were wearing you down, feel free to do some data analysis and show us if what would happen if you didn't have those contracts. Again, you don't have to go into details, but just some simple data analysis just to give us an idea of what's going on. And 4, please provide an improvement summary. For example, if one policy is working and you implemented it in a couple of fiscal years and it shows is improving your either DVB or SB, please provide those details. We would like to know. And 5, any other comments and any other challenges that you're facing to meet your SB and DVB participation goal. And finally, please also provide some contact information. As you will notice, the new improvement plan calls for a manager's signature and your department's director's signature. So again, there's a new improvement plan template. I have provided the link, and If you have any questions about the new improvement plan template, please feel free to give me a call, or you can contact Katrina Blair directly. The phone numbers and the emails are towards the end of this presentation. SB options and DVBE incentive. The Form 810S has two parts. There's the part one, which is the SB DVB option. And again, the DVB SB DVB option is in case where it's a streamlined procurement process by contracting either directly with a California either certified SB or DVB for goods and services and information after obtaining two codes from at least two such businesses. For public work contracts, the contract has to be between 5,000 to 291,000. All other contracts, the contract has to be between 5,000 and less than $250,000. On the part two of the Form 810S is the DVBE incentive, and the DVBE incentive regulations apply to all competitive solicitations for public work services, goods, information technologies, and services posted after October 9, 2007. The incentive range is normally between 1 to 5%, and again is based on historical DVB participation levels for the contract type. And again, the incentive is only for evaluation purposes only. The department shall apply an incentive to bids that propose a California certified DVB participation as identified on the bidder declaration. And again, if the bid is based on point system, the solicitation shall include individual requirement that identifies incentive points for the DVB participation. Is the Form 810S. On the Form 810S, as again I said, there's two parts. There's the Part 1 and the Part 2. Part 1 deals with the DVB, SB, and MB option. For that part, you just total the number of contracts awarded as a result of option and the number of contracts awarded. Part 2 calls for the total contracts awarded as a result of the incentive and the number of contracts awarded as a result of the incentive. And again, if you did not either use the option or the incentive, you still have to submit this form. Just make sure you say there's nothing to report, and make sure it's signed and dated by both the preparer and the approver. Infrastructure Bond Act of 2006, which is Form 810A. The Infrastructure Bond Act of 2006 includes the following. First is the Highway Safety Reduction, Air Quality Port Security Bond Act, Housing and Emergency Shelter Trust Fund, Kindergarten, University, Public Education Facilities Bond Act, Disaster Preparedness and Flood Prevention Bond Act, Safe Drinking Water, Water Quality Supply, Flood Control, River and Coastal Protection Bond Act. For the Form 810 Activity Report, which is the I-Bond Activity Report, Assembly Bill number 761, and also in the Government Code 14838.1F, establishes a 25% small business participation goal in all contracts that are financed with the proceeds of the Infrastructure-Related Bond Acts of 2006. An improvement plan is required when the participation goal for I-bonds is not met. For the I-bond activity, the goal is 25% small business participation. If your small business participation is less than 25%, you are required to submit an improvement plan. It's an example of the Form 810A, which is the I-bond activity report. Again, just like all the other forms, the yellow boxes need to be filled out. And the most important thing, if on the parts 1 and 2, if you did use proceeds of the I-bond, please make sure you indicate whether it was for the housing shelter, it was for the highway safety traffic reduction, it was for the disaster preparedness. Again, please make sure the yellow boxes are checked. And if you did not use the proceeds of the infrastructure bonds, You still need to submit the form. Just make sure you indicate there's nothing to report. Consulting Services Report Form 810C. What is a consulting services? Consulting services means services that do all of the following. First, consulting services contracts are those that are defined for purposes of an advisory nature. The final product is a transmitter of information in either written or verbal form. The product may be answers to a question, the design of systems or plans, workshops, seminars, retreats, or conferences. All consulting services contracts must be reported unless excluded. These are the following consulting services that are excluded. 1. Contracts between state agency or departments and the federal government. 2. Contracts with local agencies to subvene federal funds for which no matching state funds are required. Contracts develop, maintain, administer, or use licensing or proficiency examinations. Architectural engineering services subject to provisions of Chapter 10 commencing with 4525 of Division 5 of Title 1 of the Government Code. There's an example of the Form 810C, and all these forms again can be found on our website. I've provided the links to where all these forms can be found. If you're having any problem finding any of these forms, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email, and I will either email it to you or provide you the link to where you can find these forms. For the Consulting Services Report Form 810C, under the report codes and amount, there are three sections. There's entered, amended, and completed. Entered into report each reportable contract is awarded or entered into during the fiscal year. Amended, you report each reportable contract amendment during the reporting period. Per PCC 10111, reportable amendments are only changes to the completion date of the contract. The contract price is more than 3% of the original contract price. The contract purpose or the contract duties have changed. And if the contract duties have changed, please, you need to provide an explanation. Completed, just report each contract which work ended in that reporting period. In the same case, under the reporting codes and amounts, there's a bid type code and there's a low bid, which is a Y or N. For the bid type code, we've provided a legend. For example, if the contract was an NCB, which is a non-competitive bid, under the bid code, please just write 3. And if the contract was either a low bid or not, the lowest bid was accepted. If the lowest bid was accepted, put a Y, which is yes. And if it wasn't, just put an N, which is a no. And if you do enter the no, please, on the explanation section, you need to provide an explanation why the lowest bid was not accepted. Contractor information and contract action dates. Contractor's name, contractor's ID, number of bids, contract actions date. You have signed, contract signed. Enter the date the contract was signed and approved by the authorizing official. Work started, enter the date the work performance began on the contract or the beginning of the contract term. Work completed, enter the date the contract work performance was completed or the expiration date of the contract. Amended, if the amendment amount changes the contract time for performance and or the dollar amount, please enter the date that the amendment will be effective or the beginning of the extended term. Remember to only enter contracts signed, work started, work completed, or amended if it occurs in the current fiscal year. Ethnicity, race, and gender and sexual orientation report as Form 810E. Public Contract Code Section 1011 requires state agencies to report participation levels in contracts by race, ethnicity, and gender of the owner and whether the business is a lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender owned business. This is to the extent that the information has been voluntarily reported to the awarding department. Submit one consolidated report for your department. Report the total value in whole dollars amounts of all the voluntary statistical data sheets that you receive from the vendors during the reporting period. There's an example form 810E, which is normally called the EXO report. Again, you just need to fill the yellow parts. The other parts of the form have formulas and will calculate themselves. Again, if you did not receive any voluntary statistical data sheets from the contractor, you still need to submit the form 810E. Just indicate there's nothing to report. Form 810E. Okay, remember the decision whether to fill out and return voluntary statistical data sheet is voluntary with the contractor but not with us. The awarding department is required to send the voluntary statistical data sheet forms to the contractor and retain them if the contractor sends them back. The department then must compile the data and report it back to DGS annually. If no voluntary statistical data sheets were received, then include a report that states there is nothing to report. Here's an example of the voluntary statistical data sheet form, FSDS form. And as you can see in this form, under ethnicity and minority is checked. For Native American, race classification is American Indian or Alaska Native. Gender classification is female. Sexual orientation classification is lesbian. And then the items below to be completed, it was a service contract. In this case, the total contract purchase was for $2,000. So that $2,000 will be reported under the ethnicity and minority classification for Native Americans. Also, that $2,000 will be reported under race classification and American Indian and Alaska Native. The $2,000 also will be reported under gender classification and will also be reported under sexual orientation classification under lesbian, and for the categories, it will be reported under services. Cover letter. It's important that you do submit a cover letter. All reporting entities are required to submit a cover letter with their consolidated reports, and he must explain what organizational entities are included in the report, particularly if you have any boards, commissions, conservancies, or campuses or laboratories that you're reporting for. Please include those on your cover letter. Identify any entities that report independently but are related to an agency or department. For example, if you're the primary agency and you have secondary departments or agencies that you do report for, please include those on the cover letter. Second, any anomalies either in the total amount of contract dollars reported for SB or DVB participation must be addressed. For example, if in the previous fiscal year there were some changes or you need to make changes to your previous numbers, please indicate that on the cover letter so that way we can update our database with the most correct and accurate numbers. And also on the cover letter, you can review your prior improvement plans if you do have any, and just briefly, you can give an explanation its effect on the current participation goals. But please make sure you include the cover letters with your report. The cover letter must also discuss SB and DVB participation trends over the last 3 years, including the current fiscal year being reported and whether the participation trend was improving or declining. Here's an example of a table that you can include with the cover letter. As you can see, it covers the last 3 fiscal years and indicates whether the total contracts were declining. In this case, they were declining. SB participation was declining. However, the SB participation rate was increasing. The DVB dollar spent increased and the DVB participation also increased. And the reason why we ask you to update the last 3 fiscal years is that we do provide a dashboard that can be viewed with the public, and we want all the information that the public see is actually as accurate as we best can verify. So if you do have previous fiscal year's numbers that need to be corrected, please put them in the cover letter and we will update our database accordingly. Again, the consolidated annual reports are due to OSDS by August 1st. If you do submit by mail, there is our address, Office of Small Business and DVB Services. Make sure you put Attentions Reports Coordinator. The address is 707 3rd Street, room 1-400, West Sacramento, California. Zip code is 95605. The C.A.R may also be submitted by email, and please, when you do submit an email, send it to osdsreports@dgs.co.gov. Again, remember the due date is August 1st. August 1st is a hard deadline. Anything that's submitted after August 1st will be considered as not submitted. Again, from now until you submit your report, if you do have any questions or you have any concerns, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. My phone number is 916-375-4937. If you have any questions regarding the Office of Small Business program in terms of small business and DVB services, please feel free to contact the OSDS manager, who is under Dragic. Her phone number is area code 916-375-3115. Any questions regarding the new improvement plan template? Katrina Blair is the person. Phone number area code 916-375-4358. For reports requirements, forms, and instructions, I have provided a link. And again, if you have any problem downloading any forms or instructions, please give me a call and I will email them to you directly. Thank you so much for listening.